Well, hello and welcome to the Village Online. I am so glad that you joined us. And this is a time we get to spend together 25 minutes looking at parts of the Bible that can maybe be helpful, maybe make your life a little bit better. And I think today's story is going to be just that. So let's dive in, okay? Do you have any routines that you do that you try to kind of do religiously that are helpful to you? I try to do a morning routine. I wish I could say I do it every single day. I go through seasons when I'm very, very good with it, very religious with it, and then I'll have a week or two where I won't do as good. So I'm not proud of that, but currently, here's my morning routine. I will get up before I actually get out of the bed. I'll spend about 5 to 10 minutes just thinking about things I'm grateful for. Normally, I prop up on one elbow in the bed, and I just go through things that I'm really grateful for because I feel like for me, it's helpful to do that before my feet hit the ground. But then when I get up, I go have a little bitty gym in my backyard, and I go to that gym, and the first thing I do when I get there is I do about 10 minutes of deep breathing exercises. I didn't even know anything about that a couple of years ago, but that has become a part of a routine that for me makes me feel way better. And as I think about getting older, I think about how important our lungs are. And so anyways, I do that. And then after that, I'm doing some strength training, but again, not the heavy weights. I went through a season when I was doing that. Now I'm doing more body weight stuff. I can do about 100 push-ups in the morning, and that's been a great addition for me. And I do body weight squats and stuff like that. And I try to do that, and then I try to read. When I finish the gym, I try to go to the house, and I try to read for at least 30 minutes in the morning. It's just kind of something that I think is helpful to me, and it kind of makes me think that I'm in a healthy, good rhythm. I want to talk to you today about something in the religious world that was instituted as part of Jewish culture that was, the purpose was to put them in a place where they would be doing, highlighting, spotlighting some things that would be very healthy for them. So that's kind of what this is going to be about. And so the past weeks, as we've been talking, we were talking about the Exodus story. And I loved the way we took new looks at so much of that. I remember when we talked about invisible lines, the idea that we don't necessarily see slaves in our life, but we certainly see people all around us that are living behind invisible lines where they are marginalized. They're not experiencing life maybe the way many of us get to experience life. And so we dealt with a lot of that. We dealt with the plagues and what that could how we could understand that. And now we are getting ready for the Jews to go into the promised land. I mean, they have escaped bondage in Egypt. They have crossed the Red Sea. They have wandered in the wilderness for 40 years, learning lessons they were supposed to learn. And now they are just on the verge of finally getting to go into this promised land. That's going to be a phenomenal thing. And as this is happening, they are given instructions. The writer says these are words from God about how you need to walk into this new land. Here are some things that you need to do that will be helpful, that will be healthy for you as you are now living in this new promised land. So to kind of hang our hat on something, there's a word that many of you know from church. I was not familiar with this word growing up at all, but it's the word liturgy. Liturgy actually means a customary public worship that's done by a specific religious group. In other words, these are certain things that certain groups will do as a part of their worship service every time they gather together. If you were Catholic, and I know we have many people who are watching who grew up with a Catholic background, there was a liturgy that you guys followed. If you were Methodist, there was a liturgy you followed. Presbyterian, liturgy. Episcopalian, liturgy. Many of those groups recited the Apostles' Creed. Every single Sunday you would recite the Apostles' Creed. Some churches, like churches that I grew up in, you would maybe sing the doxology. Every Sunday it would be a part of the worship. We're going to sing the doxology. Or you would partake in communion every Sunday. Or you would say the Lord's Prayer every Sunday. You would kneel at a certain time, or you would stand at a certain time. Our church was more of a country church, so we didn't have those kind of liturgical things. I've been in churches, Baptist churches, that had like responsive readings. Certain times in the service, you would read scripture, and there would be the reader would read, and then the congregation would respond, and it would all be in the back of the hymn book. But those are just parts of liturgy. And for many of us, we don't even know why we do, in some churches, the things that we do. Maybe there was a reason to do certain things in certain ways, but over time, we just kind of lose what that is, and it just becomes something that we do by rote memory, or we just do it because it's supposed to be done, but it really doesn't resonate with us in any kind of a real way. Well, again, I want to go back to what was taught to the Jewish people as what they were supposed to do as their liturgy when they go into this new land, the promised land. This is from Deuteronomy 26, and I think it's going to be helpful. So Deuteronomy 26, verses 1 through 15, just giving you a little bit of a setting or a setup. The Jewish people are still in the desert. They have not moved into the promised land yet, but it is coming. It is just over the horizon. It is almost there. And so the people receive instruction, and this instruction is when you enter the promised land, there's going to be times of regular service, worship services, when you are going to come together. And if you read this whole passage, the writers are saying this is what God is telling the people of Israel that they must do once they've arrived in the promised land. And again, at the moment, the Jews have been just kind of homeless for a long time. They've been homeless for 40 years. But it's like, you're going to have a promised land. You're going to move into the promised land. It's going to become your home. And these will be things that you will want to do every time you get together for worship. These are some of the things you're going to want to do. The purpose of this liturgy, if you will, is to help the people remember what is most important. So, again, just setting it up, they were to enter into this worship time with a basket, and the basket was to contain things called first fruits. That meant if you grew figs, you would have a tithe or a tenth of your figs. That would be a part of what you would be bringing. This is going to have to do with an offering. I'll explain it in just a moment. And don't worry, I'm not going to talk to you about that kind of an offering except to give an explanation of what was happening then. So Deuteronomy chapter 26, verse 3. Go to the priest in office at the time and say to him, I declare today to the Lord your God that I have come to the land that the Lord swore to our forefathers that God has given to us. Now, let me just say, one of the reasons that we know this was written way ahead of when supposedly the Exodus happened is because a lot of this definitely has a priest kind of an understanding from an institutional temple kind of worship, and they're writing back into the story, so they kind of have justification for the people to say, oh yes, we remember, that's a part of our origin story, that's why we do what we do. So the Israelites were instructed that when you are in the new promised land, remember that God has been faithful to you, that what God said he was going to do, God did. In other words, declare that you believe in God, or said another way, profess in some way that you believe that God has been real to you, God has been working for you and in you, and God has blessed your life. So they're given these instructions when they were still poor, they're still living in the desert, and God, the writer says, when God gives you this place, you need to remember that it came from God. God told us that there was a land for us, the promised land. Now we have made it into the promised land. Therefore, we attest God is good, God is benevolent, God is with us, God is for us, all of those things. It's a huge part for them of healthy spirituality to just say, we need to declare that God has been blessing us. God is real. God is working. God is a blessing. Now, let me pause just a moment and say some people, and I totally get this, have a hard time embracing this declaration, this idea that God is doing all of these things. And that's a hard hurdle for many to get over because there's a lot of negatives involved with using the name God. Even that thought, it brings up just a lot of thoughts, and people are like, I got to start with that. I don't even know if I believe that yet. Jacob Wright, he is a brilliant young theologian, and I love to read things that he says. He said this, and I think it's worthy. He said this, let's stop using the word God for a moment because of all the baggage attached to that word, and instead, why don't we use the phrase love and logic? Love and logic. That this universal love and logic is what necessitates what a universe should be, and that it should unfold as a rational, cosmic, life-giving system, a system by which creatures come forth perceiving meaning as reflections of this love and logic. Again, don't want to get too esoteric, but the idea is, if you can't say thank you, God, for blessing, can you see maybe the universe and the operating principle of love and be able to see that whatever that is, that spirit of love, that power of love, may be able to say, I'm just aware that love seems to be driving the good things that can happen in our lives. Maybe love is the thing that's pulling me into a better life. Maybe instead of saying God, maybe just to get started, maybe you can just say it. You know what? I don't know if I'll ever say it, God. But there's certainly this power of love that has had influence on me. I think what Jacob Wright is saying is, you don't have to say God. You don't have to say God. If that's not where you are, that's fine. It may never be where you are. Just recognize there is a power of love that seems to be the most powerful force in the world. And maybe as we think about the Jews going into the Promised Land, maybe we think about our discipline and practice as we move into a more desirable life. Maybe it's good just to say, I'm grateful for this power of love that has been operating in the universe and has been operating in my life. For most of us, our liturgy should contain the idea that this power of love or something beyond us is real, and not minimizing our involvement, certainly not, but that something is there, some power is there, and we are grateful for how that is creating in us a more beautiful life. I think that's very, very helpful. Second part of the liturgy that I think is really cool is in verse 5 of chapter 26 of Deuteronomy, where it says, then you shall declare before the Lord your God, my father was a wandering Aramean. Other translations say it like this, my father was a homeless refugee. In other words, when you are being grateful for the life that you are now able to live, and you're grateful to this God or the divine or this power of love that you sense in the universe, then be willing to declare where you came from. To the Jewish person heading towards the Promised Land, you remember there was a time that you didn't have a home. Remember, go all the way back to Abraham. Abraham left his home, and he was a wandering Aramean. And then after hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years, they finally settled in Egypt. But over time, they were despised by the Egyptians, and they became slaves. I think what the writer is wanting us to know is it can be a great temptation to forget your story, to forget where you've come from. Don't do it, not to try to hold yourself down, but don't do it because your story is important. This is followed in the scripture by recounting of how their ancestors had lived in Egypt, where they had become slaves, how they had wandered in the wilderness as homeless refugees until they finally made it to right where they are now, about to go into the Promised Land. There was a time when your forefathers experienced incredible pain. The Egyptians subjected them to difficulties and hardships. Remember those times of suffering in your past. Verse 7, remember that there was a time when we all cried out to the Lord. Verse 8, We were brought out of Egypt with God's mighty hand and God's outstretched arm. Again, the text has God telling them to declare who you are. Where did you come from? What is your story? Here's a good thought. Hang on to this thought. Any liturgy or practice, religious, spiritual practice, that doesn't include owning your own story, it's not good liturgy or a good spiritual practice. You need to own your story. God wanted, according to the writers, God wanted the Jews to remember where they'd come from. Be willing to remember the good, the bad, the hurtful, the ugly. Remember it all. And for us, it's just as important. When you think about spiritual thoughts, remember where you've come from. That's okay. I used to think as a young guy that for me to, I needed to only declare all of the good, positive things, right? And so I become a preacher as a really young guy, and there's a whole bunch that was good, whole bunch looked good, and then I just pretty much totally just pressed down anything that wasn't good. I don't want anybody to ever know or think that I had any doubts, that I had any troubles, that I had any struggles. I don't know if you can relate to that. I bet you can. And I finally realized, probably in my early 30s, I realized, you know what? That's not true. I have a lot of struggles. There are things that I struggle with. There are things that weren't perfect in my life, missed by a million miles. Sometimes my fault, sometimes things that were done to me, but they were part of my story, and that it was better than all right to admit my story, to be able to share that there were some unhealthy practices that were part of my life, and that I had to learn through those things, that I didn't understand relationship dynamics sometimes. And because of that, I got into relationships that were hurtful to me and to other people. They were just not great. And it's okay to say, you know what? That was a part of my story. When my perfect story crashed and I went through a divorce in 1987, I kind of had to grow up and say, are you going to just keep trying to pretend like you have it all together and you have no difficulties in your life? Or are you going to finally get honest and say, you know, I struggle just like everybody else, exactly like everybody else. So whatever your story is, in this spiritual practice that hopefully you're in, you want to know that it's okay to share it. It's okay to own it. It's who you are. And you can't help that that's the way you were brought up. You can't help that's a part of who you were at different points in your life. It's okay to own it. When I was a young person, I didn't want to embrace my painful seasons. I didn't want to embrace my bad decisions. But as I grew older, I realized it has its place. Richard Rohr, one of my heroes, you hear us talk about Richard Rohr all the time, Franciscan priest, brilliant man. He wrote a book, one of his best, I think, and it's called Everything Belongs. And in that book, Everything Belongs, he writes about the failures in our lives many of us try to hide. Rohr says this, the great and merciful surprise is that we come to God not by doing it right. We come to God by doing it wrong. That's when we discover the divine, when we have done things and we've missed it a million miles, and it's like, oh, that's where God is. So, good idea. For many churches, they'll only let you tell one type of a story. Any other story you have to be hushed about. And again, we don't feel that way. We believe your story is sacred. Whatever you've been through, it is sacred. It is your story, and it's your right to be able to share it. I'm so glad our church is filled with people who are not afraid to embrace their story, and we embrace their stories too. I have a friend who goes to our church who's had to take a few trips to prison before he discovered what he was really searching for in his life. And you know what? He could keep that a secret and act like that never happened. But why? It's a part of his story, and we love him, so it's okay for him to share it. We have someone in our church abused as a child, emotionally scarred for sure. But over the last years, things have begun to change. They're understanding life differently, and they're able to look back at those painful experiences, and they're able to process it differently, but it's still a part of their story, and they're able to share it. And when they do, it resonates with so many other people who have had those kind of painful experiences as well. We have another village couple who lost a business, a big business. They lost it, and they were doing things right. They didn't go gamble the business away or do something super foolish, but they lost it. And they've had to own that, and they share that story, and it lets people know there's no promise that you're not going to have hardships. You just do the best you can, and they're able to share that. Another villager went through a painful divorce, now raising her son and dealing with that and being able to own that there were things that she did that weren't healthy, and now she's processing, and that's been a good thing. Another villager's tried to live their life in a closet. Took them a long time before they realized God didn't create any of us to live in a closet. That's not a place to live. We hang our coats in a closet. We don't live in a closet. It took this person a long time before they finally said, I won't live in a closet one more minute. And now that's their story, that they came out of the closet and they discovered it's a beautiful place to live. Even if mom and dad don't get it, it's a beautiful place to live, to say, this is who I am. You get the point. Own your story. Whatever your story is, own it. That's the very best thing. Frederick Buechner is one of Stan's most favorite authors in the world. Buechner says this, my story is important, not because it's mine, God knows, but because if I tell it anything like right, the chances are you will recognize that in many ways it is also yours. It is precisely through these stories in all their particularity, as I have long believed and often said, that God makes himself known to each of us more powerfully and personally. If this is true, it means that to lose track of our stories is to be profoundly impoverished, not only humanly, but also spiritually. Amen, Frederick Buechner. That's a brilliant thought. Final thing. This is going to be a part of the thing they were supposed to remember. To go back, remember my morning routine. This helps me. This is a spiritual routine that should be helpful. What do you think about? How are you thinking? God or love, or however you want to understand the divine, is pulling us into a better place. Our story is important. And then finally, Deuteronomy 26:13, you're going to have in your hand this basket of first fruits when you're going to see the priest, a portion of all you've produced or made, and it's called the sacred portion. And then here's the verse, say to the Lord your God, I have removed from my house the sacred portion, and I have given it to the Levite, that's the priest, the foreigner, I've given it to the foreigner, I've given it to the fatherless, and the widow, according to all you've commanded. So if I could just say that in a nutshell, what they're saying is, I have given it to the leader of the temple, I have given some of my first fruits, I've given it to the foreigner, the refugee, the person who's undocumented that's in town. I've given it to the fatherless, that would be the orphan. I've given it to the widow. I have taken what I have been blessed with, and I have shared it. In a church context, I can hear preachers saying, give some to the church, give some to the poor, give some to the orphans, do that. But you know that we don't ring that bell a lot. If this is beneficial to you, then take that first fruits that you've been blessed with, and use it in places that you feel like can be helpful to people. If you see this service that you get to watch, if you see that as being helpful, then I would encourage you to give part of your blessing, part of your income, to help support it. We do a horrible job at talking about this. Neil Campbell does, he does hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of work to produce this and make our message go out across the airwaves, and we're barely able to even pay even just enough for a few meals a week. That's how poorly we're able to do what we're trying to do. But I would say, if this resonates with you, if this service resonates with you, and you'd like to be a contributor to it, then that would be a discipline that you could do. You could say, I want to give each week, I want to give, or each month. And you can set it up easily. You can set it up. Take a little monthly gift every month that would come and designate it to this online service, because we need to start building this online service because we believe it's important and we believe it can really help change the world. I didn't even get off into that. I was just wanting you to see the final piece of the liturgy was you need to be giving back. You need to be giving back. We feel strongly that we're not going to be the kind of church that says every penny that you're going to give, you need to give it to us so then we can figure out where it needs to go. I don't know where it needs to go. I know we need help in the media side of things. That's where we would designate it right now. But if you know someone that you can help, then help them. But also build into that any kind of spiritual ministry that you feel like can be genuinely helpful to other people. We need that as well. God is saying in your liturgy, in your remembering, in your discipline, make sure that giving is a part of what you are going to do. It's critical. So very important. Take care of the hurting. Take care of the people that need to hear a message. Take care of them. To offer more than just words to the widow. Make sure you help the widow. To offer more than just words to the orphan. Make sure you help the orphan. Make sure it's not just words to the refugee. Make sure you help the refugee. So here's what happens. Eventually, the Jews cross over into the Promised Land. And yay, 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 they've made it into the Promised Land. Isn't this fantastic? This is way better than slavery for sure. But guess what? They got real good at the religious practices of going to the priest and giving the priest the things they were supposed to give the priest. But you know what they didn't do? They didn't help the people tangibly that really needed the help. And it was kind of a disaster. And I think most institutional religion, that's kind of what happens. 700 years before Christ, Hosea is a prophet. And Hosea says this to the Jews living in the Promised Land. Hosea says, your love is like the morning mist. It's like the early dew. It's here, but it disappears so quickly. Hosea said this, you've forgotten God. And Hosea even says, this is God's word to you. I desired from you mercy, not sacrifice, but you continued to sacrifice lambs in the temple, when what I wanted from you was mercy towards people. I wanted you to acknowledge love, true, genuine love. Amos, another prophet living about at the same time, Amos chapter 5 says this, I despise your religious festivals. This is in the voice of God saying, I despise your religious festivals. Your assemblies are a stench to me. Even though you bring me burnt offerings and grain offerings, I'm not going to accept them. Though you bring choice fellowship offerings, I will have no regard for them. Away with the noise of the songs. I will not listen to the music of your harps. But let justice roll on like a river, righteousness like a never-failing stream. What's the message trying to say? Trying to get across that, you know what, if you want to have a practice, a spiritual practice, remember where you came from, yes. Remember that God's love is pulling us forward, yes. But then tangibly do something. Help in some way. If you feel like this is helpful to get out, help. If you know of other ministries that you can help, help. Put your money out there where it can be a benefit, a blessing, something that can be really, really good. Well, I want to close with one of my favorite stories, and maybe you've heard it, maybe not, but I love it. It's about one of my heroes. His name is Tony Campolo. He came and preached at the Village Church, I don't know, maybe 18, 19 years ago. But he is a real hero, and this is the story. Tony was in Philadelphia. He's actually from Philadelphia, but he was speaking at a large conference, and the conference was on social justice, and it was helping people learn to focus on caring for the marginalized and the hurting people in the world. Tony had been at lunch, and he was hurrying from lunch to get to a plenary session where he was going to be the featured speaker. So he is kind of dodging people going through downtown Philadelphia. And as he's walking on this bustling street, shoulder to shoulder with thousands of people in this downtown area, he bumped into someone really, really hard. And it was so startling that Campolo kind of turned around. And when he turned around, it was obvious the person he bumped into was someone who lived on the streets. Tony recalled that it was about a 95-degree day, and this homeless person, this person living on the streets, had a long overcoat on. And Tony said the man appeared to be on a mission. And then Tony later says that he didn't realize the mission was going to be him, but he learned a profound truth this particular day. He said the man had a long overcoat on. The man was sweating profusely because it was 95 degrees. He's wearing a long overcoat, and he has heavy layers of clothing on. And Tony said he looked at the man, and Tony said to the man, excuse me. And he said the man said, no, excuse me. And then Tony started back down the street because he has to get to the plenary session, right? He's going to the conference. He goes down the street, but he said he walked about a half a block and something inside of him said, turn around. And when Tony turned around, the man was standing in the midst of all of this crowd of people in the downtown area, but the man hadn't moved. He was staring at Tony. So Tony turns around thinking he's just going to see where the man has gone off to, and the man is standing exactly where he was, and he is staring back, and his eyes catch Tony's eyes. Tony said it was a bit startling, but he said, I turned around, and I walked back up to the man, and I said, can I help you today? And the man looked at Tony, and he said, yeah, you can. And Tony said he started reaching for his wallet, thinking maybe that what the man needed was a few bucks, maybe for lunch. And he said the man was holding a cup of coffee. And he said the man looked at me and he said, yeah, you could help me today. I would love for you to give me a hug. And Campolo, PhD, brilliant scholar, said I looked at him, big beard, heavy overcoat, sweating profusely. He said I kind of pushed the $5 back down in my pocket a little bit. And he said, I hugged the guy. And he said the guy hugged me like he hadn't been hugged in a long time. Tony said he really kind of held me. And he said when the hug was over, the guy looked me right in the eyes. And the guy said to me, would you like a drink of my coffee? And Tony looked down and he said it was a McDonald's coffee cup. And he said, I looked back up and he said, I remembered the words of Jesus, it's more blessed to give than to receive. And I knew that this man was wanting the blessing of giving something to me. So I said, sure, I'd love some of your coffee. And Campolo said, I took the cup and I took a big drink of it. And when I handed it back to him, the guy looked at me and he said, the coffee at McDonald's this morning was especially good. And God has taught me whenever you have something especially good in your life, you need to share it. And Campolo said, I agreed with him. And as I turned around and walked away, I thought, I have just learned one of the most profound lessons in my spiritual life from a man who was homeless on the street. When you experience something especially good, it's important to share it. And Tony said that day, drinking that cup of coffee, it stuck in his mind. That's exactly right. If you've experienced something especially good, it's really, really important that you share it. I always like that story. I wish I could tell it like Tony Campolo because he's got that brilliant Philadelphia accent and it's perfect, but I can't. But I hope you get the point. In our spiritual lives, as we move towards whatever the promised land is for you, whatever that desired place is, that's that beautiful place where you want to live your life and experience your dreams and all of those things, I hope you can hang on to a few of these thoughts. I hope you can hang on to the idea that there is a power in the universe, love, that is pulling you towards the best version of you. And that's a great thing. And whatever your story is, own it. It's your story. It's your story. And that's important. And then finally, and this is something that every institutional religious group struggles with, we end up thinking it's more about doing these religious religious theater, and it's not about genuinely helping people. Make sure you find a way to help people. If you experience something particularly good, like that cup of coffee that day, share it. If you've experienced something particularly good in a conversation like this, then help us. You know what we would love? We'd love to have, honestly, we'd love to have 100 people who could give $25 a month just to go to media so we could actually see what could happen if we blew this up as big as we could to get the message of love out all over the world. I don't know, because I don't talk about money very much, but as I was just thinking a minute ago, I thought I need to say that. So if you can help us, set it up as a recurring gift. Make sure you designate that it's for media and what we're trying to do through this talk, our green screen, us being able to get the message out. See if you can be a part of that. If you've been blessed, why don't you try to bless others? And this would be a wonderful way to do it. You guys are the best. I hope you're going to get into the Christmas spirit. I hope you'll begin to feel some cool stuff going on for you. I can't wait to talk more about that in the coming weeks. And I just want to say a prayer, and I hope you have a lovely day, all right? God, thank you for this day. Thank you for every person who takes time to watch and for every person who benefits from these times we spend together. And I pray some people, it really resonated with them. They want to be helped because we want to do this better. We want to get the word out as strongly as we can because we believe people need to know that God loves them just as they are. God loves everything about them. God celebrates who they are. And we want to get that message out and also help them as they experience this loving God that so wants to be a part of our hearts and lives. Thank you for this time together. Thank you for every person. And I just pray that you will help all of us walk this walk and experience this love that you have for us. And I pray this in Christ's name. Amen.